The Rebel Capitalist Show.
Bitcoin's greatest asset, potentially, is its scarcity. But then the last week, as I've been trying to really mull over this, I'm thinking, okay, it starts with full reserve banking. I mean, I took it all the way back to just, let's go to the beginning here and how would this differ? And then you go into a free banking. I'm just talking about how it kind of evolved in the United States. So you had this free banking system where the banks would create their own IOUs, for lack of a better word, with gold being the backing. And then it was nationalized in the Civil War. Then you have the central banking era starting in 1913. But then taking it forward to Bretton Woods, I've had a lot of conversations with Snyder. And Snyder's thing is Bretton Woods was really the catalyst to the system of the eurodollar system itself, because there's corporations or entities outside of the United States that needed dollars, and those dollars weren't, or enough of them weren't getting outside of the United States because they weren't running a big enough trade deficit, let's say. So they had to create this system that we now have, and Snyder would argue that that's the system that created the GFC in 2008. But that was due to a scarcity of dollars, right? If you want to look at it that way. And I've gone back and forth with the same Bitcoin guys that they give you a hard time, give me a hard time. And they're like, well, that's never going to be a problem because it's infinitely divisible. And I'm like, yeah, but so was the dollar. And I don't think the dollar got replicated just because you could. I think there was something else. And I was thinking, okay, well, if we just immediately went to a Bitcoin world where that was it, there was no fiat currency, it was just Bitcoin, then how would other countries, get them? I understand through like the price specie mechanism that Hume talked about, and I'd like to go into that in a minute. But I'm thinking, okay, that creates scarcity. There's only 21 million, and it's not just being divisible. And if so, don't we just get right back to where we are today, but a more efficient system that we have today due to that scarcity? Am I crazy in thinking that way?
Don't forget, humans are humans. Credit's been around. Yeah. Credit's been around for thousands of years, and credit's not going to go away. And humans will create massive derivative markets, massive lending markets. Yes. We don't have a Bitcoin yield curve yet. And I keep talking about this. But when it comes, it means it has time value. And then I can lend it to you, you can lend it to me, and off we go, recreating. Because don't forget, everyone has this kind of rose-tinted spectacles about the gold standard. Bullshit. There was excess leverage, massive booms and busts, deflationary pressures, all of the same things. That doesn't go away. Yeah. It's because of human behavior. And because that's how we can generate growth, is by using leverage. So none of that goes away to me. As you say, it's a better system, but there's going to be claims on it. Now, the claims will be on a smart contract where we will know who owns what to whom and where we are in the subordinated stack. Right. Okay, that's fine, but it's still all there. And that's not that. So it doesn't change that. To have a hard money at the center of the world's monetary system just creates a lot of deflation. And so countries have to compete with each other in different terms. So it's not in currency terms any longer. So what way is it? Well, it's price terms in terms of labor or technology. Can I produce the goods cheaper than you? Or better than you? That's the only thing we can do, right? If we're in a perfect competition world where the currencies are the same, we have to find an edge. Right. And all of those things are deflationary. And so if you do have debts in a deflationary world, they go up in real terms. So I'm not sure there is a panacea. I don't think it exists. I think there's an inherent problem with humans and their risk-seeking behavior. Yeah. And that's normal. Because people want to believe there's a better way. Yeah. They want to believe that it's not us, it's them who cause the problems. It's not the central banks. It wasn't the gold standard. It wasn't any of that. It's us. We create it. Because if I can borrow money from you, if you own Bitcoin, and I say, hey, listen, George, can I borrow some of your Bitcoin? Because I want to pay I want to put a deposit down to buy a house. You'll say, sure, it's going to cost you 6% a year, and I'll give you my 6% a year. I use that, but it's collateral in the house. because that's normal. That's not going away. There is no unlevered world. It just doesn't exist. It doesn't even exist in small kind of rural communities in Africa. There is still leverage. There's always the money lender. I mean, the money lender is, the oldest profession on earth, or the second oldest. So it doesn't go away. And just because you've got a better form of collateral, it doesn't change everything. Yeah. But in the transition from here to there, maybe you can extinguish a lot of the dollar debts. Maybe there's a bunch of this stuff that changes over time. So you get to rebuild. And don't forget, from the Nixon period onwards, we had an enormous period of growth because leverage came with it. So, you can generate a huge amount of growth once you rebuild a system, but in the end, it'll be the same result it's always been.
Yeah. When you're saying that, it makes me think of people who look at a new president or a new Fed chair as a panacea. Oh, if we could just get the right guy or the right gal in charge, all of our problems would go away. They'd handle everything. And it's almost looking at Bitcoin the exact same way. I read an article the other day that interesting hypothesis. They said in the West, we've really moved away from religion. And I'm not going to debate whether that's good or bad. It is what it is. But they said that the human being still needs meaning in their life. So they looked at our political landscape, let's say in the United States, being so divisive. And their hypothesis was maybe that's because we've moved away from religion and people are trying to find something to fill the void, to give their life meaning. And we've done that potentially with politics, or, maybe we've done it with Bitcoin. Maybe we've done it with gold. Maybe we've done it with other things. I thought that was really fascinating. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've definitely seen the rise of tribalism online because as sovereign societies, the countries we live in have become less societal. We formed our own societies. You and I met in our little tribe, which is Fintuit. So that's our new sovereign state to us, because digitally, borders don't exist. So I don't care which country you're in. You and I move around countries, but that doesn't make a difference to that. So I think that's interesting. But I actually did a lot of work for Global Macro Investors to try and get to the bottom of, okay, why is all this happening? Outside of the religious thing, which I think is true, and it's the changing nature of society. And I looked and I brought it back to World War II, and it could go back further. It could go back to World War I. After World War II finished, the record number of people came into the labor force. So 76 million baby boomers into the US. Okay, so by the time they were all getting into their 30s, much like the millennials are now, and I'll come into that in a sec, these people were competing against each other for wages. At the same time, we abandoned Bretton Woods. So that was another marker in this. But what happened is when you put 76 million people into the labor force, and at the time the population was much smaller, so this was gigantic as a percentage, wages never went up again, ever, in real terms. So wages stopped going up in about 1974 in real terms. So then the next phase of this is cut to the credit boom that came out of the Reagan-Thatcher years. What was that all about? Well, interestingly enough, credit growth offset the lack of wage growth. It's almost perfect when you measure all assets against it. So people did what they thought was the logical thing. I'm earning less money in real terms, therefore I'll borrow to make the difference. The next phase of this came with the rise of technology. The PC, obviously, in the 80s, but really by the 90s and the internet, okay, this was technological change that we hadn't really witnessed before. It was feeding on itself. It was becoming exponential. So that was becoming deflationary as well, because you'd get more productivity out of a computer than you could out of a person. And then from 96 to 2000, we had that whole period of the WTO. And the WTO basically opened the playing field that everybody can compete on labor price. And when China came in, that was it, done. The Europe, US manufacturing industry completely hold out unless you were the best in class, which was Germany and Japan, because they had great high quality, so they didn't compete on price. Everybody else got killed, and wages just didn't go up. And the labor force participation rate started falling. Right. Then those people, the baby boomers, had a record number of kids, 80-something million of them. They all came into the labor force recently. They're all hitting 30. So now you've got these, and the baby boomers aren't leaving the labor force because they can't afford to. They never made enough money, had too much debt. So now you've got two massive cohorts and a globalized world and technology. And I'm like,
and 1.8 trillion in student debt.
So no wonder everybody's angry, and they don't know what the anger is about. The anger is the fact that their quality of life over time has diminished because wages didn't go up. And it wasn't a function of necessarily because we left the gold standard. It wasn't because of, there's more rampant inflation. It's because there was too many people competing for jobs, both internally and externally. And then we're competing against computers. So nobody understands why. Why can't I get out of this trap? Why does the American dream not mean anything? Why can't I do that? So they get angry and it becomes political. And it's the banks, it's their problem. It's the central bankers, it's their problem. It's not any of these problems. It's humans' problems. Again, we are our own worst enemy. We always have been. So that's my take on this. And it's very different because everybody wants to blame everybody else. But really, I think it's demographics.